economic development. I'm Todd Rosenstock. I'm the director of the CGIAR Climate Action Program. And I'm very happy to be here today with this exciting panel to discuss these issues. We all recognize that there's a problem, that there's only about 7% of the finance that's available, climate finance that's available today gets to the agri-food sector. And most of that is concentrated in China and Europe and other places. So we really need to find new ways of getting money into some of these developing economies and new ways to get money towards smallholder farmers. So within the CGIAR Climate Action Program, we've really pivoted recently to really thinking about the financial mechanisms that in doing action research on those mechanisms to be able to help stimulate this transition. And so this is a new opportunity for us, and it's great to have some of our partners in the room to illustrate some of these opportunities. So today we're going to be hearing about 4 specific innovations, including an innovation about getting carbon and other finance to women farmers, specifically in India, the potential for adaptation-linked carbon credits, the specific other carbon methodologies that empower vulnerable populations in the rice sector and others, and then a new wiki for tracking adaptation as well. And so all of this, and then our discussant Remo will be pushing us and pushing the limits on the effectiveness of some of these mechanisms. So all of this in the bottom line is really just to invite you to engage actively in this session. You'll probably be asked questions, I've heard from some of the panelists. So this is really, I mean, we're a small group. Jump up when you have questions, ask, well, how can we do this better? And let's get started. So there's before lightning talks, followed by a discussion by our discussant, and then some closing remarks as well. Okay, and so the first lightning talk is going to be from Mansi Shah, who's the Senior Technical Coordinator from Self-Employed Women's Association, SEWA, in India, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about how carbon markets and how carbon projects. Yeah, you have to be very careful. I saw someone tumble. Yeah. You go to COP and all you get is a sprained ankle, you know. And so Mansi, please give us some idea on how you've done this so far in India. Thanks.
Thank you, Todd, and namaste, everyone. So my name is Mansi, and I represent over 3.2 million poor self-employed women workers from the informal economy in India. These are the members of SEWA. These women are the salt farmers, the smallholder farmers, agricultural workers, street vendors, and so on. We organize women from over 125 different trades across 18 states in India. And over 60% of SEWA's membership is rural, and agriculture is one of the major occupation. And because of the increasing climate shocks and the market shocks, the biggest challenge that our members were facing is, why does the farmer remain hungry? And therefore, to address this burning question, SEWA started its agricultural campaign back in 1985, which focused on 4 major pillars, which is capacity building, affordable access to agricultural inputs and technology, access to finance, and backward and forward market linkages. And with these objectives, the agricultural campaign has been working for the past over 2 decades. But recently, in the past 10 years, what we have seen is that the climate shocks are increasing, and they are disproportionately impacting these rural workers, especially women and the smallholder farmers. And so how do you help build their climate resilience? And that's why SEWA initiated its Building Cleaner Skies campaign in 2022 with 3 major objectives. The first one is to create awareness and education on what is climate change and how it is impacting the lives and livelihoods of the poor. The second objective is to promote and bring visibility to women-led climate action at all levels, national, regional, and global levels. And the third objective was to promote and facilitate these rural households and the poor households to switch to clean, green adaptation and mitigation solutions. But as we started spearheading this campaign, what we saw was that the major barrier to adoption of these adaptation and mitigation solutions was the inhibitive cost of these solutions. So how do you address these? Um, so we have seen in our work organizing these women for past 5 decades is that poor do not need charity. What they need is enabling environment and innovative financing solution. And therefore Seva piloted exactly that. We tried to bring an enabling environment and innovative solution for building these women's resilience. So let me share just two small examples on what are these kind of innovative solutions that we piloted. My first example is for the salt farmers in the Little Run of Kutch. It's the desert where 70% of the country's salt is being produced. And the salt farmers, they migrate to this desert for 8 months every year, and they live in uninhabitable climate conditions to produce salt. And despite this working so hard, they were, when Seva started organizing them, they were barely earning US $175 annually. And in this, they had to sustain their entire family of 5 to 6 members for 12 months. The major barrier to strengthening their livelihood was access to sustainable energy solutions. So switching to solar pumps from diesel was the what would help in strengthening their livelihoods and increasing their livelihoods from 175 US dollar to 1100 US dollar per year. But the cost of the solar pump was 200,000 Indian rupees, which a salt farmer barely earning 15,000 rupees annually can never afford. So Seva harnessed the power of collective strength, bargaining power, and we did forward market linkages with the private sector to eliminate the middleman. We advocated with the government so that the government subsidized 80% of the cost of the pump. But how do you address the rest 20%, which is still more than their annual income? And that is where we tapped the carbon market. We aggregated the carbon savings by switching to the solar pumps and traded them in the market, voluntary market. And because of that, it increased $140 per year the income of a salt farmer family, which they used in paying off the loan on the solar pump. And that is how we enabled them to switch to clean green energy solution and reduce their carbon emission and increase their income from $175 to $1,100. And the second example, very quickly, is about rural households switching to clean energy solutions for cooking, where we facilitated over 4,500 families to move from wood-fired cook stove and LPG cooking to biogas. Now, the upfront cost of a biogas digester is 45,000 rupees, which a poor household can never afford. So what we did was we calculated the carbon savings by switching to this biogas digester and for the lifetime of the digester, and upfront traded the carbon emission, carbon credits to the vendor itself. And that is how the vendor reduced the cost of the digester from 45,000 to 9,000 rupees. So, and these 9,000, we provided the women with what we call as returnable grant, so that the women can, it's an interest-free loan. And so whatever is the saving in LPG that the women had, they can pay back as an installment towards the loan. And within an year, the women were able to pay back the cost of the digester. So now they have lifetime of energy free of cost, and the surplus is the slurry that comes out is being used in agriculture, and that's why it improves their agriculture and also increases their agricultural income. So these are the two examples of how innovative financing solutions can help poor women tap the carbon market and strengthen their livelihoods.
These are fantastic examples and really inspirational about how carbon markets can help sort of fill gaps and be catalytic even when there are relatively small amounts of funding. Is there any clarifying questions from the audience here? Yeah, great.
how many women, how many households are necessary to aggregate this to a sufficient level to make it financially feasible?
So we aggregated for the solar pumps. We till now, I mean, the challenge is that you can count the carbon credits only after the project has been registered. So we have registered the project in 2019, and till date we have been able to aggregate the carbon credits of 1,134 salt pan workers, and each of them is earning $140 annually. Because that is the question about making it affordable is the biggest challenge, because for registering any project in a voluntary carbon market you need at least 40,000 US dollars, and in addition to that there are other operational and allied costs, and therefore for informal sector rural women to be able to access it, it is really, they all really need support from governments and from philanthropic capital. So that is a challenge which we have. That is one of the learning which I wanted to share, that it is one of the important learning that we need to subsidize that cost for the poor women workers. And for the biogas, we were able to link 4,500 households to biogas digester. The challenge here is that we are still having the project in place, but the voluntary market has collapsed. So right now the vendor is not able to sell the carbon credits in the market, and that's why he is not able to provide us this reduced digester at a reduced cost.
You just touched a little bit on my question there about the volatility of the carbon markets, and if you are relying on that future revenue that has risk in it, did you guys have to kind of figure out a solution to almost underpin that future revenue there? I'd love for you to share.
Yes, definitely. And that is why what we have done, our members what we have done is we have put up, we have set up a pool of blended finance, what we call as the Livelihood Recovery and Resilience Fund. It is a pool of blended finance where women, as I said earlier, women do not need charity. So every woman contributes 1 day of her wage into this pool of blended finance, and this we match it with philanthropic capital, and this pool is used for providing women with interest-free loans or first loss default guarantee, because these women, they do not have any kind of collaterals, and therefore the public and private sector banks think that they are non-bankable. So how do you make these women bankable? So the LRRF, the Livelihood Recovery and Resilience Fund, it provides FLDG. So the banks, they don't have any risk, and therefore they are ready to lend to the women. And what we need to tell, and the message that we want to send to the banks and the private sector, is we have a 98% recovery rate on the LRRF. So women are bankable, poor women are bankable. This is what we want to make the case.
I don't think I can improve on that message, so I'm going to just move on to our next speaker here. Introducing Pedro Chilembe, who's a senior scientist with the Alliance of Biodiversity in CIAT, based in Nairobi, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about adaptation-linked carbon markets.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that the introduction that Todd has made is good enough to go. So we have been working together with partners to look at how we can actually leverage the carbon markets to actually finance adaptation activities for smallholder farmers. So as we know, smallholder farmers currently receive a very, very small proportion, as Todd mentioned, of climate finance, yet in terms of their contribution to production, to GDP in countries, they are the most important actors actually when it comes to what the agriculture sector has to bring. So due to the current finance gap that exists in the sector, about $75 billion annually for what farmers actually need, we are looking to see how we can actually leverage the carbon markets to be able to increase the finance for their adaptation. So we've been looking to see and understand what different climate smart agriculture practices and adaptation practices can actually offer dual benefits, so that with the mitigation and greenhouse gas emissions reduction or avoidance, we can actually not only gain from the credits that are generated from there, but also at the same time see impacts in terms of increased yields, reduced losses, so that we can also link it to adaptation outcomes. So there are a variety of practices that have been identified in different studies that are able to bring about both. And we're definitely looking to see how we can actually see the technical potential in different geographical locations, different agricultural zones, to actually be able to see which of these different practices have the best impact in terms of both objectives and outcomes. So together with our partners, this being the Gates Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, we're looking to actually understand where and how, as I mentioned, these different practices will be able to bring about these different benefits, but also to calculate the economic benefits that will be generated over time, looking at the market and the possible pricing that can be actually attached to the greenhouse gas emissions reductions that we'll be able to see over time. But most importantly, will be to actually understand the feasibility of these different practices in terms of actually how much income they'll be able to generate for the farmers in the long term. Of course, if we end up seeing through this work and through this study that we're not being able to actually see benefits that actually justify the investment that will be made, then of course we will have to look at different strategies for how to be able to achieve this. But most importantly as well will be in terms of after seeing this feasibility where it's actually possible to go forward, to be able to map this out so that different project designers, be it from the policymaker perspective or the different organizations that are actually working with the farmers or small businesses, can actually look to understand where in their geographic locations where they operate, where exactly they'll be able to see the biggest potential for this kind of adaptation linked carbon credits. So with that, we do have an interest of course, understanding what experiences others have had in terms of accessing carbon credits, but through interventions that actually do have adaptation outcomes. We just heard here quite a few from India that I definitely resonate with. Seeing, for example, how biochar, of course, can bring about good clean energy, but also has byproducts that actually support agricultural production. But yes, it would be very interesting to hear from you in terms and from your organizations in terms of well, I think I put most of the questions there, but I think the most important ones are the opportunities and challenges you see with this kind of model. With the work that you do, what kind of gaps do you actually have to be able to make decision making? What information, what data, what evidence you feel will be important? But also where we should be focusing to make sure that we do see results and that this actually is useful for the smallholder farmer, for women, for youth, especially in the areas where you work. So that's it from my side, and thank you very much. Yes, definitely.
Anybody in the audience have any responses to the question?
Hi. So, oh yes, my name is Monica. I'm working for Isha Foundation, and we're supporting the Safe Soil movement. So we are supporting about 250,000 farmers in India, in the south, in the transition to regenerative agriculture. So far, the project has been funded mainly by private donations to get it going. So actually, the challenge right now is how to go in this direction, because we have the infrastructure, we have the ambition, and we have actually a lot of things in place for it to grow. But we need the funds. And I think I can very much relate to what you're saying. It is very difficult if they have to pay an interest rate, and also very difficult if, because we are introducing agroforestry, their their yield, really their ability to pay will come in 7 years or something. So how do we bridge that time, and how do we make them bankable, and how do we offer something that is, it, like you're saying, I mean, the repay rate is high, but how can that be translated and really understood by all the impact investment firms that are not going to put too much heavy pressure on the farmers and be able to do this? So I'm not sure exactly if I am answering the questions that you're posing there, but this is our current situation, and that's what we're trying to find out. How can we support this to grow further? Thank you.
Does anybody have an answer to that question? Great. Awesome. Thanks.
I don't know if it's an answer, but sorry, I'm Lauren Coop. I work for Nature Conservancy of Canada, and we've been struggling with this same question, and I'm wondering if there are opportunities. We're trying to get there ourselves. Investors want sort of a steady, predictable stream of returns, and that obviously means in that first 6, 7, 8, or 8 years. But we have other projects that don't necessarily have the long term. Like if we conserve a property, we get a flush of credits up front, but not the long-term stream. So trying to blend, have a diverse, not just this one project, but couple that with some other project. I'm not sure the extent of what you do, that kind of has a steady stream from the one project to start, and then you kind of tap into that. But it does require kind of straddling 2 different project activities, essentially.
I also had one, I mean, when you, the last point where you are saying, where do you focus on? And so in that case, because when we have been working with farmers, smallholder farmers, we saw that we see that you can generate carbon credits by switching to regenerative farming. You can generate carbon credits from switching to clean energy solutions at household level and also at animal husbandry. So all majority of the smallholder farmers in India and in, I mean, I'm not sure of the other countries, but in India have animal husbandry, and they live in the rural areas where there is a lot of potential to switch to clean energy solutions. However, for generating the carbon credit, we have to register individual project for each of it. So for household appliances, one project. Even in household, like if it is biogas, one project. Energy efficient appliances, another project. In agriculture also, it's like soil conservation, one project. Switching to precision irrigation, that is another project. So is there, if you can, if you're through your research, if you can bring out this challenge and an innovative model where you can combine all this project and register it as one project, then it will be much more effective and efficient and affordable for the workers. And it can be then implemented through farmer producer organizations or collective effort also. Thank you.
Great. So we're hearing that first, it was possible. 2, you have to be creative about it. And we've heard about one project in India. I think most of your work is talking about Africa, if I'm not mistaken. So let's transition and go to Southeast Asia. One of our presenters did not make it, so she sent us a video. And so we'll have she's been working in the carbon markets and rice systems for the last number of years. And so we'll get a video from her, Catherine Nelson from the International Rice Research Institute. She's an ag economist there.
My presentation this morning will focus on how grant funding as part of blended finance fills critical carbon project preparation gaps, and I'll introduce a novel concept for convening mechanism for sharing costs, risks, and benefits for inclusive impact. Agriculture, especially rice and livestock, is a major greenhouse gas emitter, but it offers untapped carbon reduction potential. High upfront costs and technical complexity create barriers to developing bankable carbon projects, which deters investment. Smallholder farmers and local providers often lack the capacity that's required for designing, validating, and registering a carbon project. To overcome these hurdles, the concept of project priming uses grant funds to prepare project areas for global carbon registry, validation, and the registration process. This involves iterative project design according to specifically chosen carbon methodologies, including being able to identify eligible farmers and georeferencing the project area, stratification of farmers based on physical factors and management practices, conducting stakeholder consultations, securing government approval, quantifying location-specific baseline emissions, and the mitigation potential, as well as training farmers and MRV data collectors, validating the project, and registering it with a global carbon registry such as Verra or Gold Standard. This process typically takes as much as 1 to 2 years, and these efforts are essential for reducing investment risk and demonstrating project viability to private investors. So what's needed is a convening mechanism that allows for pooled investments to share costs, risks, and benefits. The role of the convening mechanism is to unite private investors, government agencies, technical partners, farmer organizations, and donors. The shared costs reduce the burden of expensive, time-consuming, and complex technical prep, making projects more attractive to private sector investment. Shared risk distribute uncertainties across stakeholders, and grant-based project preparation means bankable projects are ready for investment. Shared benefits ensure that farmers and local communities receive new income streams and gain new market opportunities. This multi-tiered partnership, coordinated by a trusted intermediary like the CGIAR, aligns incentives, protects the interests of smallholder farmers, and fosters trust. CGIAR institutions are uniquely positioned to act as the convener for agricultural carbon projects due to several key strengths. CGIAR encompasses leading international research centers with deep scientific knowledge across agriculture, climate change, and greenhouse gas mitigation. This technical capacity supports rigorous project design, development, and implementation of carbon methodologies that are tailored to diverse farming systems. Further, CGIAR's research is internationally respected and evidence-based, providing the scientific rigor and transparency that's necessary to build credibility with private investors, governments, and carbon registries. This oversight assures methodological soundness and helps justify deviations to adapt global standards to local reality. CGIAR institutes also have long-standing collaborations with national agricultural research and extension systems, governments, policymakers, and companies that would purchase the products across many different contexts and countries. These partnerships facilitate linkages between farmers, official institutions, and investors that enhance legitimacy, policy alignment, and scaling potential. CGIAR institutes excel in training and capacity development for farmers, technical providers, government agencies, and market actors. As an international research consortium, CGIAR institutes operate with neutrality, trusted by diverse stakeholders, including donors, government agencies, and private sector players and communities. Also, the CGIAR invests in open access data, GIS mapping, and digital tools for reliable emission monitoring and transparent reporting, all key requirements for credible carbon markets and investor confidence. There are 3 distinct phases of carbon projects. In the first phase, grants finance priming activities like farmer mapping and onboarding with potential pre-financing depending on the project type and needs. Emission baseline stratification, training of trainers, MRV system setup, and project validation and registration. The second phase requires private sector investment for on-the-ground implementation of mitigation activities, the MRV data collection, verification of emission reduction, and working with the carbon registry to authorize the credit. The third stage involves finding off-takers for both products, the carbon credits and the low-emission food product. Farmers can gain access to new, higher value markets that would increase farmer incomes without locking in buyers into long-term price premiums. The high costs associated with conducting monitoring, reporting, and verification have discouraged investment and confined projects to small-scale pilots that rarely expand. These expenses are typically borne by project investors who focus primarily on carbon reduction as the project's main asset. However, reframing the value of carbon projects from the standpoint of local communities offers a new perspective. The social impacts of carbon projects can and should be quantified to enhance the project value. These projects generate new employment opportunities through the demand for MRV data collectors, trainers, and validators. Since these roles are newly created, long-standing gender norms do not constrain participation, allowing targeted inclusion of rural youth, women, and marginalized groups, thereby advancing livelihoods and gender equity. Furthermore, most agricultural carbon initiatives yield additional environmental co-benefits, including water savings, reduced air pollution, decreased soil erosion, improved biodiversity, and more. CGIAR institutes should consider the institutional mechanisms that are needed to offer cost recovery, carbon project priming services, and capacity to engage in commercial project activities with revolving funds going back into further project area expansion. Donors may prioritize grants for priming carbon projects and to sustain convening platforms that reduce investment risks over the long term. Investors should develop financial products blending grants and patient commercial capital to share risks across actors. And finally, governments can create enabling policies and programs to support investment and low emission procurement. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Yeah. So did anybody see anything in Katie's presentation that links to our earlier conversations? Todd, did you want to jump into the conversation? With a quick reflection?
Again, the challenges of MRV, the cost of MRV, the benefit distribution mechanisms.
Underlying questions are driving all of our work, it seems. So let's jump. We're running a little bit short on time, so let's jump straight to Dr. Lucy Njuguna, who's a scientist with the Alliance of Biodiversity in CIAD, IPCC author of the Adaptation Gap Report, and some other things, and an ex-student of mine. So not a student, ex colleague of mine. So please, Lucy.
Okay, thanks, Todd, and good morning, everyone. Quite a long bio. And I'm just going to pick up from where the last conversation has ended, which is about measurement. The title of the session was about using carbon markets to unlock financing for adaptation. So I'm going to focus on the adaptation part of it. Because, of course, with the carbon credits, behind the background is methods for being able to quantify how many tons of carbon or greenhouse gas emissions you've been able to sequester. But then you need to also be able to demonstrate, especially the core benefits part of it. So how can we be able to better show with the technologies and solutions that are being promoted as packages as part of unlocking carbon financing, how can we also demonstrate that we are actually also generating adaptation benefits? And it was really good to hear the case from India, where it's very clear that some of the projects that are already being implemented, they have very clear livelihood and welfare benefits for the communities. But then we know for adaptation is quite difficult because the methods are not well advanced. I mean, one of the big agenda items for COP30 is agreeing on indicators for measuring progress in adaptation. But in practice, we don't have agreed methods or even data sets that we can be able to use. And I think there's a very big case for being able to demonstrate adaptation benefits in the context of carbon markets, because besides, of course, capturing both adaptation and mitigation, we would have better ways to communicate our impact, which can help in catalyzing more financing, because everyone wants to put money where it's effective. And these can be able to show where we can actually be able to tap into to deliver on both adaptation and mitigation. But then feeding back is even into how we design those projects. Can we be able to use this type of evidence to optimize the solution packages in a way that is not just packages that can deliver on sequestration, but then we can be able to design packages that can actually synergize. So for example, if it's solutions in the rangelands, how can we make sure it's not just, for example, solutions that leave the land bare, but how can we put in packages that actually also deliver on welfare and improving the livelihoods? And of course, by doing that, we can also be able to minimize the trade-offs. And I think also there is that opportunity that with better measurement of adaptation benefits from carbon market solutions, we can be able also to tap into some of the other mechanisms that have been designed specifically for adaptation, such as the adaptation benefits mechanism that aims to quantify the benefits from adaptation, which are then translated into credits that can be used to catalyze more investment. So going full circle to then again catalyze more financing going into adaptation solutions. But the challenge, as I mentioned, is that we don't have adequate methods that we can be able to measure adaptation benefits. And so I wanted to highlight some of the innovations that the CGIAR is working on through a project called Adaptation Insights. So this is a project that is funded by the Gates Foundation, running from last year up to the end of next year. And we have two particular innovations that are of interest with regard to this topic. One of them being that we are working on surfacing more evidence that help us show what solutions have been implemented across the context, and with implementing those solutions, what has been achieved, how effective are they? So feeding into that evidence base and making sure that this evidence is available can inform the way we design our interventions. And the evidence base is based on a synthesis of what we already know. So building on and drawing on previous assessments, but then designing a platform where stakeholders can continuously feed the information to actually then show what they are doing. But then with this, we make this a living evidence synthesis that we can continuously keep updating. And the second innovation is called a methods wiki, because we need methods that can then be able to help us to better assess our adaptation benefits. So with this, we provide a platform where stakeholders can get access to better methods. We improve the way we assess our benefits. And in better assessments, we are feeding back into the evidence synthesis. So it's two innovations that are complementary. And here I just wanted to show an example of what we've done before. So the current evidence synthesis platform is still in the making, but we are building on one prototype that we had built where we were assessing some of the projects that have been implemented across Africa, focusing on climate smart agriculture. And we can see there are already thousands of projects that have been implemented with associated data scattered across. So how can we be able to catalyze on this data, be able to use some of the project reports to show where particular technologies have been implemented and what benefits have been achieved. And at the same time, it can help us to track the financing, because then you can also be able to access information on how much investments are going into adaptation. And here is just a simple prototype of how the methods part of it would look like. We are envisioning something that is very user-friendly, in the sense that it's sort of a Wikipedia page where a user can just come in, read up on how to implement particular methods. And with this, we can start moving towards more standardized approaches that can even help us to aggregate evidence that is coming out from the different solutions that are being implemented. So it will be a basic, very not highly technical, because I know when we start talking calculations and lab methods, they can be they can turn off the users. So we are looking forward to something like a Wikipedia page where someone can just go to understand the how to measure adaptation benefits. And of course, is to identify entry points and opportunities for different stakeholders to be able to engage. And I think a particular question, maybe back to the audience, is where you can see this type of work and the type of innovations that we are working on. How can they be linked with what you're already doing? So for example, for the stakeholders that already have running projects, can we be able to provide better methods that you can be able to use to actually demonstrate and communicate your impact? Do you have data that we can actually showcase in the living evidence synthesis? And in doing this, how can we, of course, continue collaborating to just improve the way we measure and communicate our impact? Thank you.
So that's a lot of questions. Does anybody have a response to any of those? Yeah, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Hemo from the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market. I don't have the answer for everything, right? But I really want to make a point on the link between the carbon market practices or methodologies related to small farmers or sustainable agriculture or even efficient cook stoves. So, and how it's actually related to adaptation to. So when we go to sustainable agriculture, so many of the practices that actually are included on the list of possible activities that you actually, like this? Okay, sorry. Many of the activities that are within the list of possible mitigation activities to generate carbon credits, they generate a lot of co-benefits related to adaptation, right? And it's, maybe it's just a matter on collect already the evidence that's there, and make, as you said, with the Wikipedia, make it easier to understand and also make it easier to implement. And as you said, the point about capacity building, right? So it's the knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge there. It's just a matter on how to gather everything and make easily accessible and understandable by the people that are on the field and are implementing them. So I'm just giving some examples. So agroforestry systems. So they for sure generate a lot of credits. They for sure generate a lot of food and biomass. It's the most efficient way of producing biomass in a human induced way. So, but they are also generate a very unique and local, I would say, it's not a biome, but a biosystem that the tree that generate the shadow for the other ones, they protect it for longer, and you have like a hydraulic system within the same area that actually maintains humidity for a longer time. So this is adaptation for stressful climate that we're facing now. So with droughts or with floods, it depends, right? With heat waves or cold waves. So among the different practices that we understand that generate mitigation activities, they do generate a lot of adaptation co-benefits. And I totally agree with you that if we have a measure or a way of making it clear also for investors, it will also make the cause more relevant for investments and for the money to the climate finance actually arrive to these projects, and especially for the small small holders of land. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So a great message there about making the information that we have available and to spur investment. So thanks, Remo. Todd, real quick, and then we're going to go back to Remo.
Follow-up question. I'm sorry, I don't have answers. No, I was wondering if you could specify who the users of this are that you're anticipating and exactly how you anticipate them using this wiki. So it's a great source of information, but we know getting it to application requires that user specificity.
Yeah, indeed. So the way the wiki is designed, we are targeting different types of users. Some of the ones that we're already working with is people who have already received funding for adaptation, to be able to quantify what benefits have been achieved. This is mostly donor-funded projects. So at the moment, and we also have some work where we are working with SMEs and private investors, because for them, they are undertaking or doing operations within areas that actually deliver climate benefits, but they are not able to demonstrate that. So the wiki becomes a resource where they can go in to be able to understand first, for those that haven't clearly articulated their adaptation operations, how can they be able to articulate that better? And secondly, for those who already mainstream climate mitigation and adaptation within their objectives, how can they be able to demonstrate what they're already achieving? So that's just one type of stakeholder. But even within the CGIAR, we are doing quite a lot of work on climate mitigation and adaptation, but we still don't have a very good way of articulating that. So even research institutes such as CGIAR, it becomes a very good user, because then we need better methods. We probably already have the data, but it's the way we package and communicate it. Again, ourselves, we are also a potential user for the wiki. Yeah.
Thanks, Lisi. Okay, real quick.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank
please
you
get
so
in the
much.
conversation.
Thank you so much. My name is Nyongesa Haduyu Michael, and I work with Forum Sieve. And my interest in this conversation is I'm seeing that it's not to Lucy only, but all the panelists. If I pick from the Catherine's presentation was that we need the mobilization power in terms of if you're talking about small scale farmers that you're targeting for you to come up with a viable carbon markets project, then you really have to ensure that you've mobilized enough to attract enough credits that you can sell on the market. But something that we forget is that the law and the legal frameworks kind of like tend to be the hindrance to actualizing this potential. For instance, in Kenya, we've set up the law, and I thought it's just that when we set up the carbon regulations, it's going to be enough. I've seen the carbon regulations for non-markets, for Article 6.2, for Article 6.4. I've seen us reviewing regulations on how the registry is going to look like. So you find that in just for one carbon markets under Article 6, we are seeing 4 different regulations that are being set up. And you're like, this small scale farmer, how is he or she going to start reaping the benefits out of the carbon market? So I think I appreciate the scientists. You generate the data, you model to see how the future scenarios are going to be and the problems. But I also, it's good to, when you're doing your research, to put in the background of legal and the policy framework at the back of your mind. Thank you so much.
Remo, I wonder if you wanted to take that question on, or I mean, it's now your turn to come up in. That wasn't the question we were going to ask you, but now you're on the hot seat.
Thank you very
Great
much.
question. Thanks for.
So
thanks for
hi
asking.
again. I'm Hemo from the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market. And well, yeah, so it has been, we have a momentum now for carbon markets in worldwide, and this is also a momentum for regulation and for the different categories of the voluntary carbon market. So, and of course, the regulation sets the field, sets the base for investments, for participation, and unleashes actually, makes things clearer, it unleashes activities, scales, well, there's potential to scale everything. From our perspective, because we work on the voluntary carbon market, right? We are auto-regulator organization for the voluntary carbon market. We have a different approach on that. So we set our standard, the CCP, the core carbon credits, right? That it defines what we understand is a credible carbon credit, and integral with integrity with one carbon means actually one carbon. So right, it's measurable, it's quantifiable, it's verifiable with a third part. But we also are very open to listen all the participants on how to engage more people and how to make the participation and unleash the mitigation in a spreaded way. So for that, we have many forums of hearing, and we also have some programs called Continuous Improvement Working Group, right? Working Program E. We had one for Article 6. We had one. We are having one for MRV now. We're just starting. We are having one also for verification bodies and validation bodies, and we have planned also continuous improvement working program for smaller projects, and how we can actually define or think on a structure that makes monitoring easier, that make risk assessment easier, and still conservative. I'm not saying it's going to be a loose risk assessment or a loose monitoring or a loose verification, but how to make it easier and streamline process. So to facilitate the interest of new players, to facilitate the interest of very small projects, and not just for farmers, but everywhere. And also make use of the distributed approach to unleash mitigation activities, and of course, by consequence, as I said, adaptation co-benefits. We are also planning to do a continuous improvement work program for agricultural practices, right? Because this is one of the most, this is the category of one of the most potential mitigation on the world. And it's not me, I'm saying, it's Bloomberg saying that, McKinsey is saying that, so it's really something that we need to focus. And then as a program as we stand as a benchmark for integrity for carbon markets in general, We during these programs, we call people, we call project developers, we call market participants to contribute and to make their point, to show their to their difficulties, and also people that may actually have a solution or propose the pathways that we should follow. It's not just for us as an organization, but for the whole market. Which activities, which are the ways that we should follow to actually make the finance arrive on the people that are actually implementing these activities. So this is, and also it's making a stronger market with trust. So this is all the variables we consider, and we hear we have this tool to hear the market, to hear market participants and collaborate with us.
Great. So continuous improvement. I think we all heard it here first. It seems like we've been hearing that for many years, though, in different words. Are we ever going to arrive?
Well, yes. We have the prioritization of which continuous improvement program we are thinking to implement. It's in our website, so it's there for the smaller projects and continuous improvement working program. It's there, so it's on our planning. The agricultural one, we are a step before, so we're considering this is was a topic that has been brought for us recently. So it's not on our website, but it's something that we discuss internally too. Well, for this year we won't have any new continuous improvement working program, but we are likely to go for it on next year.
Great. We have time for one quick question. If anybody, otherwise I'll ask another one myself. But anybody have one quick question for Remo? Sure.
Very quick. International University Network of Biodiversity, Cultural Diversity. It's a general question, but it is also appropriate to this specific initiative. Well, we have projects, we have research centers, CGIAR, etc. We know very well, and your organization. But what is the engagement of stakeholders, communities in these dynamics? Because this dynamics is a dynamics we discuss here. It's a complex dynamics, of course, but what about the ownership of these dynamics? What about the governance of these dynamics? I am not discussing about the governance of your organization, of course. I am discussing about the governance of these processes, the carbon credit and adaptation processes, for example. We need the governance. And second, there is an elephant in the room, universities. We don't utilize universities. Universities are the only institutions all over the world, but in the global south mainly. I live in Kenya, I'm a professor in Kenya, Madagascar, etc. The only institutions with the human resources, with the thousands of stakeholders, students, academics, and territorial institutions. So we need intermediary bodies also, outside the logics of projects. Otherwise, these dynamics will remain on the sky or in the box. I know it's a general question, but I suppose it is quite appropriate to this discussion. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, regarding the governance, all our initiatives, including our organization at itself, how the governance works is on our website. Regarding CIWP specifically, so we have a committee, which defines, well, which is going to be the host of the CIWP, the leader. We have an expert panel that we have a public call every 3 years. So calling people from all around the world with specific expertise to contribute. Of course, we have a limited number of people that can participate on the expert panel, but the process is there, is open, it's transparent. It's also distributed. So we always wanted to distribute among gender and locations, right? And the last expert panel call, we also increased the number of people from Global South. Right, and across the different expertise that we need within the voluntary carbon market itself. So it's all the categories, but also sustainable development, also benefit sharing, and also policy perspectives. So in our continuous improvement working program, we always have at least 2 participants from the expert panel. And if you don't find the expertise we need on the expert panel, we always go for the universities or the recommendation from people that is within our expert panel, or we go for people that we are well known to have the expertise required. It can come from IPCC, we can come from UN agencies. We also, and not sure if we launched it already, but we'll also launch a research network initiative to ask universities, research centers to contribute on the relevant topics regarding carbon credits. So this is another initiative under our program, well, I would say on our organization umbrella, to receive inputs from people that are actually on the edge of the development and on the edge of the knowledge. And again, this is the structure and how the information is processed on our organization. It's there. We have the document of our governments. We have the of our structure. Who are the people that participate on our structure, and well, the distribution among gender and global south, north, south. Sorry, global north global and south global.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And it sounds like what I'm hearing is that it's a big tent in that we actually need many people bringing their different skill sets. And so with that, thanks so much for your participation, Remo. I'd like to introduce Ana Maria Lobo Guerrero, who's the director of the Adaptive and Equitable Systems Group at the Gates Foundation, to give us a few closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Todd. And let me start by thanking the organizers of this event, because this was a lot of food for thought. And thank you for all participants, the speakers, the audience. I hope that Todd is going to send me all the notes from the meeting, because there's a lot of information here that it would be very useful in terms of this journey. I just want to spend 1 minute giving a little bit of context of why Gates Foundation is working on this. Since last year, we define a set of activities which we call big bets, because they are big, but also, and here I emphasize, they are bets. And one of those is on carbon crediting for adaptation. And to be very, very clear, at the Gates Foundation in the Agricultural Development Program, our aim is adaptation. So that's our entry point, not because mitigation is not important. Some people do mitigation, other adaptation, some people do both. But our interest is in terms of mobilizing resources for adaptation. And we see, I think that we all agree that there's a huge gap. We started by emphasizing the financial gap for adaptation. And therefore, we need to be very innovative in terms of coming up with ideas to mobilize resources for adaptation. And we believe that this is an opportunity. I don't know if it's going to work, and this is where the bet, it's important to emphasize, but we see that it's worth the effort. And this is why I think that the conversation today was really good. And then last thing that I would like to say is that one of the comparative advantages of the Gates Foundation is working on innovation. So that's something that we know how to do. And I was just taking notes by listening to you in terms of innovations that could be interesting in terms of thinking about our work moving forward. So aggregation of farmers, we can innovate in the way that we have been aggregating. Some organizations are already doing it, and we need to learn from those. Challenges in relation to time frames. And we heard some ideas in terms of combining projects that TNC shared with us. Innovations in terms of metrics, and Lucy mentioned that. How do we innovate in terms of the needed metrics for this to work? Innovations in relation to the enabling environment, the policy, including other benefits, social benefits such as women's empowerment. And we are keen to combine this with the W+ standard that Gates Foundation had been supporting from WOCAN, because we see that we can get a lot of resources for women farmers if we have a way of monetizing what these projects are doing in terms of women's empowerment. Last thing that I'm going to say, and I know that I overtime thought, sorry about that, but since this is very risky, the other thing that we have been very thoughtful about is having go, no go sort of a timeline. And we are
there's also innovation in terms of how do we know if this is going really to work for small scale producers. And that's another thing that it's very important for us. We are willing to take risks in relation to this, but we are very cautious in terms of what is going to happen to small scale producers. If there's a lot of price volatility, who is going to, be facing the burden of that? So by no means we want to worsen the livelihoods of these small scale producers. So just to say that I'm very excited. I see a lot of future, but a lot of work to do, tons of questions to address, but this is why we are here for. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ana Maria. And I think that bets strike particularly close to my sensibility. I grew up in Las Vegas. And so something my stepfather always taught me was you have to put the money on the table if you want to win anything. So I think it's really important to know that there's risks involved here, but there's, with a lot of the information and with a lot of collaboration, we'll see where it goes. So I thank all the speakers for coming and for the effort that they put in. I thank them all also for being very flexible, because I surprised them and allowed all the questions during the session instead of all in one combined section, and Remo for being very flexible as well. So thanks so much for coming, and have a great afternoon.